If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
This is another of our popular Listener's Choice interviews, which we're playing over the weekend. We've chosen the most popular interviews for you to select the Listener's Choice winner. If you're not sure how the Listener's Choice competition works, have a look at horsechats.com/choice for the rules and the leaderboard. Today's guest is Di Schaeffer. Di rode and represented her country, Australia, in the World Championships at Gawler 3-day event, and she's also the mother of Wendy Schaeffer, who people might remember as the youngest female to win Olympic gold in a 3-day event. So we'd like to talk to Di about both of those things today. How are you today, Di?
I'm very well, thank you, Glenys.
Good. Di, we normally start with a favourite quote. What have you got?
Well, number one is, I suppose, believe in the dream.
Yes.
But then I suppose that's also what Wendy would have said as well, because it was, I guess, where we went with her dream.
Yeah.
And my dream, I guess, to get to the World Championships in Gawler was where Wendy's dream started when she saw Ginny Ling and oh gosh, I've forgotten his name right now, winning the World Championships, and
yes.
She was there with me and saw that, and that started her dream, which was so successful in achieving gold at Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So I suppose believe in the dream is the first one, make it happen is the other one.
Yes. So it's sort of like have that visual but have the action steps as well.
Yeah, well, you can't just dream about it. You've got to put some plan into action.
Yeah. Tell us about your first memories with horses. You know, is it a hereditary thing? Because Wendy's got it, you've got it?
Yeah, well, Wendy got it from me, but no one knows where I got it from. I only remember as early as a child that I always wanted horses, and I'd watch the racehorses on the beach. So then I can remember my father saying, no, they're not nice people to go down to the beach at 6 o'clock in the morning. You could get damaged, little girl, and ban me from doing it. So I would sneak out of my bedroom window at 5 o'clock in the morning when my father was always sound asleep and go down to the racehorses and hold the racehorses, etc. And just did my horsey thing, crawled back into the window by 7 because Dad never got up before 7:30 sharp.
And how old were you at that stage?
Oh, I suppose 10, 11, 12, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe early teens. And because from the racehorses there was a pony lead stallion, and I was allowed to go to the racehorse stables to ride the pony lead stallion. So that was my start. From there it went to a hunter and then a fast hunter, and then someone said do a one-day event. And so we started off a one-day event at novice level because that's where you started in those days, not at 65, my God. And that was sort of a chunga at the police barracks in Australia. And we would have got third if we hadn't got that last rail show jumping, but I'd never done much show jumping. So I learned then that actually you have to put a bit of work in and get some coaching if you want to get better.
Okay. So before then, though, you hadn't had any coaching? What did you do? Just learn to jump? Because when you say novice...
I went hunting.
When you say novice, what was the height of the novice fences? What were the dimensions?
1.10 meters. It's like 1 star now.
Yeah, I was going to say that's pretty high to go to. Yeah. For
your first event. No, I think fairly soon after that they introduced pre-novice, which was 1.5 meters.
Yep.
And it's only in recent years that we've gone down. Every year we've added a lower grade, 95, and then a 80, and then a 65, and then a 450. And I believe New South Wales, they've even got a 45 centimetre calf. It does seem to me that our sport has gone down rather than up. The very top riders are brilliant, but there's a vast world of lower levels. On the other hand, I guess that what that's done is made the sport much more universal and more achievable by everyone, because not many people would ever make going straight into novice. And I can now see, how many happy housewives are doing 45, 65 80,
Yeah.
but they don't really ever want to do a metre 5 or even a metre 10.
Yeah, there's a lot more going to competitions than actually the competitions. It's a big social event. It's training for the horse. I can really see the benefit of having the lower levels to introduce, if you think of a wider base to get to, think of a pyramid and a wider base, those lower jumps and lower levels, even though you sort of go, well, I'm not going to go even start my horse in them, but they help a lot of people, don't they?
Oh, they do, and it's made our sport much more widely a participatory sport. And in fact, you get much more government funding for juniors, young riders, participatory. We're seen as an elite sport when we look at our Olympic riders and our higher levels, and it's all seen like, it's elite. They've got money. Well, some of them do have, I suppose, because nowadays, if you've got enough money and you can spend $1 million and you can buy a top show jumper and hang on, then you can try and get to the higher levels. But at the end of the day, it still gets back to how well you ride. Every horse has to be ridden, and no non-rider can really just get on a polished horse and achieve the ultimate. But yes, I can see that the grassroots is where the young ones come from, and particularly the juniors and young riders. And we have a couple of young kids with ponies adjusting to our place, and now at the moment, and you can see them going through the grades, and it's quite interesting.
Yep. Thinking about, because you've seen a lot of people start off with their ponies to go through the grades, to get started in the first place, what do you see are the core skills or the character traits people need just to get started within eventing as a sport?
Do you mean what does the child with the pony
Yeah,
need?
exactly. For someone who's going to say, I want to go to my very first one-day event, what sort of person would do that? What sort of character traits? I mean, they'd have to have a certain amount of character anyway to be riding.
Yes, I see it as quite varied, actually.
Yep.
Like we've got, I've got two, say, 15-year-olds, a 15-year-old and an 11-year-old with horses that are our players, and the 15-year-old is probably rather nervous and needs a bit of support to decide to enter the 65, and then support to, maybe you could go up to the 80, whereas the younger girl is much more a little gung-ho. Oh, yeah, the pony can do it. And then she finds, of course, when she goes to the event, well, that perhaps she's not quite old enough to quite train it well enough or quite do it well enough yet. And so, I suppose there's... But you, in all cases, you need to, number one, have a love of horses, because you've got to get up early in the morning, you've got to have the desire to put in the work if you want to compete. And, I think that it's mostly you've got to want to compete, and you've got to want to do horses, because it's time-consuming, it's often dark or raining or whatever. You don't do it if you're a wuss.
Yes, yeah. Di, what's the best thing about three-day eventing or eventing as a sport compared to other horse sports?
I believe it's the friendliness amongst the competitors.
Yep.
There's quite a feeling of camaraderie, whatever the word, gosh.
Sure.
Togetherness.
Yes.
Like we will often take truck with 7 horses, say 3 around and 4 adjusted horses that are perhaps being helped by our riders, and they'll all help each other. They'll go for each other, they'll help each other around, they'll walk each other around cross country and be just as excited when one of them wins as when the other one wins.
Yep.
Or places. So that, I find that eventing, I've always found that eventing has been a really friendly sport.
Yep.
I've made most of my best friends through eventing, through over.
Yep, good. Just thinking about people who've influenced you and helped you in your career. Who's helped you? Because you went to that first event, jumping over 1.10 meters at the police barracks, and I think you said you would have come third but got a rail down. and then decided, okay, I'm going to go and get a coach. Who's helped you along the way, and who's helped you maybe not as a coach, but just to influence you and help you in your career?
I suppose that the most influential person in me was a Dutch lady who came to Australia.
Yes.
And set up in South Australia as a coach called Mary Hovers.
Mm-hmm.
She gave a coaching clinic at the police barracks at Echunga fairly shortly after I did my first event there, and I took my horse there to her. And I guess we developed quite a camaraderie, and we're quite friendly over the years, and I that to her days with her and come on. So it was Mary Hovers was my first influence in dressage and riding cross country and jumping. I guess I was then heavily influenced by Wayne Roycroft,
yes,
and who was our national coach for so many years. Had some contact with Lucinda Green, when she came out to Australia early on in my career, and I've often had influence from Lucinda throughout. But probably Wayne was after Mary, Wayne was the main in my career. And both of these, Mary was Wendy's first coach in dressage until she ended up being judging Wendy too often at places like that. So we had to change coaches, and of course Wendy went to weighing from the age of about a 10-year-old with a good pony.
Mm-hmm.
So she had a very long history with Wayne as well, because Jill Rotten used to bring Wayne over every summer for clinics at the Ranella grounds.
Okay. What about, and now we've already talked about Sunburst. What other horses have influenced you? Tell us about the horse you rode at Gawler at the World Championships.
Sunhill Cloud was an Anglo-Arab horse that I bought as a weanling.
Yep.
I think under the influence of a farrier, it was a horse that just brought in all these beautiful-looking Anglo-Arabs that sold them all. So I said, we know of a weanling. So we bought it, and he helped me break it in, and then it suddenly had some problems, slip scuffles or so, and a certain well-known vet came and looked at it and took one look at it standing in a box and said, that'll never like anything. And I said, it's well bred. It's by Silver Cloud. It's lovely. And the run letter there and says, it's so badly put together, it will never do anything, let alone event. Well, it got to the World Championships.
Yes. It's nice to prove people wrong, yeah.
Perseverance, yeah, indeed. He was just such a good cross-country horse. He was a machine over cross-country. If I could point him in the right direction and keep the right balance, he would jump anything. And he taught me so much because I started off knowing just about nothing.
Yep. Was that your proudest moment when you rode at the World Championships?
For me, certainly, yes. But I don't know whether it rates above watching Wendy win at Atlanta.
Yes,
I suppose.
okay.
But, yeah, both of those two things would, rate pretty equal in my horsey memory.
Yep. Because thinking about people and being very proud when your daughter has done well, really, your parents are your first sponsors as a child. For child riders, like you said, you had her going to Wayne as a young child.
Yes.
What can parents do? What do you think if you're going to give a message to parents that have got children who are riding, and everyone wants their child to do well. They may not all get to the Olympics and win gold and be the youngest female or to win gold, but what can they do to help their kids and to support their kids with their riding and with their competitions?
I suppose I learned from my mistakes riding at World Championships, how little I'd known and to get there. And so I suppose that if a child is seriously dedicated to horses, wants to compete and do as well as they can, whatever level that might be, then I would think it's better to not rely on a pony club or just some, equestrian riding school to teach them, because I think the level of the instruction is perhaps not geared to high-level competition or training the child well enough. I think they should find a mentor that is find a rider that also teaches that they mostly are in the local area and specific lessons. Like Megan Jones, for instance, has made a career out of teaching to stunt competition horses.
Yes.
And has done very well with a large list of young children, older children, and juniors and young riders that have gone on and done well because they've gone a rider that they admired and respected and have learnt from and tried to follow in their footsteps.
Yep.
I suspect that when you're too busy competing a truckload of horses to take weekends off competing to do as much coaching as Megan did. So that Megan has made that her career and Wendy's went in a different direction.
Sure.
So that whether it's, you go into Olympic silver medalist or Wendy Schaeffer Olympic gold medalist or Stuart Kenny or Shane Rose or any of these riders, if they live near you, then try and get them as coach is one thing.
Yes.
But it doesn't have to be a gold medalist either. It can be any rider. Let's say just a one-star rider that's doing very nicely on their horses. They're trained, they go well. You don't see them ripping and tearing and being rough. They look like it's easy, and ask them for lessons.
All right, now that's good. So really you're looking for someone, it's not just about the winning, it's about how you work the horses and how you look after your horses during the event as well. Yes,
I think you've got to be an all-round horse person. You can't parents just pack it up and get one. The child needs to want to brush her horse and to get up herself.
Yep.
Do everything with. Form a bond. It's your early horses that you form the best bond with. I guess Wendy had Sunburst for 10 years, through Pony Club to Olympic Games. It's an amazing Pony Club story, if you like.
Yeah.
But you've got to have the desire to be with the horse and to do the work on the horse and not to have others do it for you, which is what happens as you get to be a top rider and you've got a whole stable full, then that is what happens. You have grooms and such, but you can't start that way.
Yes.
You have to do basic horsemanship and to notice if your horse looks a bit off or has a bit of swelling or things like that.
Okay. What about, because you're out competing and you see a lot of parents, and parents do lots of different variety, to be really involved, to be, I'll just drive and pull up and then you look after it. What do you think is a fault that you might see with parents? Because everyone's going to be different and the kids are all going to be different ages with different experience and different capabilities. But what's an actual fault that you think that you see and you just, you might cringe a bit and say, that's not supporting your child. It might be a bit detriment to your child. What do you think that would be?
I suppose I've never really thought about these things, Glenys. You're hitting me with things I've never thought about. I suppose the most criticism you get of parents is the pushy parent, the one that pushes the child. And you do see that. You do see children that, children is a very small word. I don't really notice.
So young riders or juniors.
Until they're juniors, young riders in the equestrian EA system, because I don't go to the lower things much. But primarily, as a junior or a young rider, you'll see kids they've bought a horse that's been there and done that, and they're expected to achieve on it themselves. They feel pressure because they've got a horse that's better than they are. Sometimes they're a little scared, honestly, and are having trouble getting that through to their parents, I suppose. Or the expectations are weighing heavily on their shoulders. And there are a number that look like they're going to go really well and go up to the top as they're 14, 15, 16, and then they fall in a heap. And it's that either that they've been overfaced or pushed a little hard and haven't achieved. Yeah, I think that is something you do see.
Okay.
Or they've got one really good horse, and when that good horse falls away, they haven't got anything underneath it, behind it, and they don't have the skills to train it without more help than they're getting, perhaps, and therefore they don't bring the next horse up to any sort of level.
Okay. So you're sort of going back then and you're looking for a coach or someone who's in your local area that could be their mentor.
To help them bring a young horse on. I mean, it's a skill to, and you need some feeling to bring, let's say, a thoroughbred off the track up to being a sensible ride to compete on at eventing that's safe.
Yes, yeah. So thinking about horses for a young rider, and Di, the reason I'm asking this is because some of our listeners are going to be parents and they want to get some advice from a parent having a parent that's ridden at the World Championships and then the daughter comes along and wins gold at the Olympics. That's a pretty unique combination. So this partnership between the parent and the competitor, I think it's an important partnership and I think it's important to get your advice on it. And that's why I sort of keep throwing in all these questions, Schoolmaster. Should they get a schoolmaster? Should they get the young thoroughbred? When should they get which horse?
Right, yeah. Okay. Mostly your children will come up with a pony, whether it's gone to Pony Club or whether it goes straight to EA is a bit different these days because now you can start competing at EA when you're 12 or less or whatever, even 8, I think. But whether it's Pony Club or Equestrian Australia, it doesn't really matter. It's you have the pony, you learn your basic skills. I think that children should be encouraged to do multiple things with their horses, not just focus on one thing. I think that too many are trained only in dressage arenas or big flat areas, and they don't get out into the hills and the dales, and they don't race around on bush ponies like we did as kids.
Yep.
I think that there's too many city-living parents and children that don't ever learn to ride on the seat of their pants. And I think that's one of the reasons that cross-country riding is a problem at the lower levels. There's a lot of unskilled riders that need more training to be safe. And even if that training is learning to gallop up and down hills and learn their own balance.
Yes.
I just don't think that people get out of the arena and train on the hills and countryside and pop up and down cross country and banks and little ditches and logs and things on the ground. You can train so easily anywhere almost. You can get into a big paddock.
Yep.
But I don't think that they're doing enough of that because I don't see people with sufficiently good balance often. I think too much arena and too much dressage. Not that you can't get away with not doing it, but you should do everything when you're young.
Yes.
On the pony and such.
Because galloping around on the seat of your pants, as you said, teaches riding skills and balance and all that.
Yeah.
But it's fun. If you're out riding on ponies and, your friends are as well and you're all racing around and so long as the ponies are safe and, you don't do anything too crazy, but it's a lot of fun just racing around and playing games with your ponies like that.
Yes, it is. And that's what gets you started in the sport. It's got to be fun.
Yes,
it shouldn't be a chore. It shouldn't be daily lessons.
Yep.
That creates a false impression and a false riding skill. They're fine when they're on the flat surface, but they can't cope when it goes down a hill. So I think that's number one, the first thing. The pony and the first horses should do everything.
Okay.
And the child should learn all those things.
Yep. And that's the sort of one you'd want a schoolmaster? You want a schoolmaster type pony, one that's been there, done that? Yep.
Both. A really young child, it's great if you can get a schoolmaster.
Yep.
But even if they've got one that's not done so much, I suppose, they just need more help with it, don't they?
Yes, okay. So that's balance, isn't it? If the horse is a bit greener, they do need more help and probably someone to help them work with the horse. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I suppose. The next step is the change from pony to horse. And I see too many want to go from a little pony to a great big 16-plus hand horse without any thought of its training or whether it's suitable or whether it's had any... there probably is the need for the schoolmaster in between the horse. And the schoolmaster may well be a biggish horse, but it's been there, done that, maybe quite old, but like this particular 15-year-old has just gone out and bought an old 2-star horse that's 16. It's over 16 hands. It's a bit big for her, but it just goes plod, plod, plod. That's the fence. Okay, I'll jump it.
Yeah.
And that would teach this 15-year-old who's a little nervous very well.
Yes.
And it gives them confidence if they can go out in 80 and go around clear and place. Well, that's the start of a career because they're happy and they're enjoying what they're doing. If they're on a bit of a rip-tear pony or a rip-tear thoroughbred off the track and they don't enjoy it, well, then they're going to leave the sport. So I think the step from the do-everything pony to the first horse is a very important one.
Mm-hmm.
And the schoolmaster is the perfect in-between.
Yep.
You shouldn't be going out replacing the pony with a horse that you think will go to 4-star.
Yes.
And that's a mistake that I find. It's quite often difficult to sell a horse that's sort of a bit average and it would be a really safe conveyance up to 1.5 metre, but it's never going to be a novice 1-star horse or go on. But it has a place in teaching teenagers and young riders how to do the sport and how to do it safely.
Yep.
And then they're ready for the next one, or they can have a young one coming up underneath that one, because then they won't rush the young one. As long as you've got a schoolmastery sort of horse that will show you the ropes, then you can afford to be spending more time with a young one, getting more training or teaching, or having a mentor or a rider who rides your young horse and takes it out to its first few competitions and gets it a bit trained for you.
Yep.
For the child to then go onto it.
Okay.
So there's various ways of getting the child onto a proper competitive horse that might go on and do 1-star, etc. in the star classes.
Okay. All right, I think that was a good explanation. I think you went through quite a lot there, so it was good. And you've talked about the local coach, going to a local coach, especially one that's already been there, done that. What if there isn't a local coach who's been competing at even 1-star? What can they do? What should they look for? And this is someone who's just on a pony, just starting to ride. What should they be looking for? Because eventing is a very much a confidence sport. So as you said, you get the biggest schoolmaster that can point them at the fence, builds up the rider's confidence, and the rider enjoys it. So you want the rider to keep enjoying it. What can they do when they're still at the pony stage? What should they be looking for in a coach if there's no 1-star or competitive coach or something around in their local areas? What other skills or what other traits should they look for in their local coach?
You got me stumped there, I'm afraid. You mean that they're so far away they're in the bush, they're not got knowledge?
Yeah.
Well, they're the kids that are, dedicated, that want to compete. They're usually dedicated and self-motivated enough themselves to do that sort of training, the seat of the pants stuff, what they can do themselves.
Okay,
when they come down to do we've had people that will come from sort of Port Augusta or so, let's say. They live there, they haven't got anyone to help them much up there, but they've got a horse that they've galloped around the bush and they want to do some eventing. They might come down a day or two early to do an event such as Ranella or in the local area here.
Yep.
And they might come down for an extra day early or so and stay at our place for a day and have a lesson from Wendy, that sort of thing that we used to do. Now, I'd say the same thing for people that come down, would have a lesson from our 1-star rider who's now doing quite a bit of coaching of young kids. I suppose it's just when you go to competitions, then you sort of see the people around the competitions and you, I suppose, try and find someone that you admire that you can set up some sort of a relationship with. To come and stay with on the way to a competition or from a competition to help you with the things that went wrong in that competition.
Yes. Okay.
And to give you things to work on at home. Not everyone can have a weekly lesson. And it's those that are self-taught, possibly, that go the furthest because they've got just that much more want to do it about it.
Tell us about Wendy's book about Sunburst. I know it's not published yet. Do you know anything else about it?
I suppose this is something that's been an ongoing saga.
Yeah.
We've tried to have it published sometimes. When he wrote a book, when Sunburst died, it was a fairly traumatic experience because he was sort of something happened in a paddock in New South Wales, and it was just after he'd come home from Atlanta and gone to Melbourne and been adored by the crowds, and he'd been up to Sydney show jumping, and suddenly he broke his leg and he was gone. And I guess she came home, and as part of the grieving process, she wrote a book about it. But I guess we then tried to get publishers, and I suppose it was the time that Jill Rolton had written her book, and everyone said, yours is just a pony club story, it's just for kids, make it a kid's book. And I guess that wasn't what she had in mind, and never quite got published that then at all. And then it got resurrected, and we looked at it again about 15 years later, and a publisher was going to make an online book of it.
Yep.
And then he ended up selling the publishing and going back to England, and it all fell in a big hole again, and we've still got it sitting around. The unpublished saga.
Yeah. Maybe we should talk to you about it, and if listeners are interested, they could contact us or have a look on Di's page, and we could give you an update there on horsechats.com/Di Schaeffer. Yeah. Di, what are you looking forward to at the moment? You've got some kids that you're teaching. You said there was one there who was doing quite well with the horse business.
Yes. Well, Wendy got married and went to England, which wasn't her mother's plan. However, the good news is that she will be back fairly soon, in the next year or so, or whatever. But yes, she ended up in England with all the horses over there. But she left quite a few in the paddock at home. And I guess part of the deal I made with my daughter was, well, you have to come back every year and ride at Adelaide. And there's a couple of horses back home that are still sort of ticking along, and were ridden by other riders and competed by other riders. And Wendy was able to come back and ride them. Of course, it didn't always go exactly to plan, but it sort of vaguely worked. And she has come back each year and ridden either at Adelaide or round Adelaide or off to Wallaby Hill or whatever, or Camperdown or Lakes and Craters. So that has happened. But after a little while of finding the right person, we've now got a girl who's living on the property, and renting some of my paddocks so that she has her part. Yes. And for that, she helps me with my horses and the adjusted horses. And the aim was to develop a small business with teaching and breaking in horses and things like that. So she's ended up with the ride on two horses that have gone from 95, no, even less than that, 95 up to 1 star, with her riding them over the past 2 years, 2.5 years, I suppose.
Yep.
And when Wendy comes home, she gets one of them back, and Rochelle keeps the other one. And the horses were both scheduled to go to Melbourne next week, with Rochelle riding them in the 1 star at the 3-day event. So that's what we're looking forward to at the moment. And as I say, Rochelle has really worked very hard and has competed so well and looked good and had the horses looking good, and has brought up some young horses herself as well of hers, and has ridden clients' horses in competing them for, and has built up a nice little business doing that. So I guess the message is that if you're dedicated enough and you train yourself well enough and you present yourself well and you compete well, then people will eventually come to you for lessons and help you make a business.
I'm just thinking, because it's a bit more than that, Di. You know, you've got someone there who's got part of your property, and you're obviously sending some business. So you're like a sponsor to her. So coming from like that point of view, what are you looking for? What did you first think when you met Rochelle? How long have you known her? And what were the traits that stood out in Rochelle that you thought, I think I'll offer her some opportunities?
Yeah. Well, firstly, how did it happen? I suppose Rochelle applied for a job straight out of school with Wendy, and it was, come on over and we'll see you at Camperdown and you can help groom there. Yep. So she did that, and she survived. And she was keen to come back again. Good. So she then applied for the job that Wendy was going to take horses overseas the following year, and 2011, I suppose it was. But and she came over to our place and started working with Wendy, and they got on fine. But Wendy had also got a Brazilian bloke to come as well who had lots of experience with grooming in Europe. And then she took the Brazilian, and Rochelle was quite devastated that she didn't get the trip away. But the idea was, well, you stay here, and we have a manager who was a British-trained instructor.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to help you with your riding a lot, and you're going to get all this riding of all of Wendy's young horses because Wendy's only taking the top few. And so Rochelle spent 2 years with our manager, who was British-trained instructor, developing her riding because she came to us as a really attractive dressage rider who had never jumped.
Yes,
and now she's looking a very good jumping rider as well, through some help with various people such as Jamie Coleman, and her own good friend is Adam Crouch, who's not known at all as an instructor, but is amazingly very good at instructing. He's a show jump rider himself and has not had the talent of some people, like Wendy, who's talented and doesn't know how she does it, so maybe doesn't teach as well. Not I shouldn't run Wendy down, but some people who ride at gold medal level can't teach because they do it so automatically.
Yes.
If you haven't, you've had to work at getting the skills of making your horse go correctly, then you're sometimes better at teaching it than the really good rider. Adam falls a bit into that category. He's also helped Rochelle with her riding as well as Jamie Coleman and some dressage help and this and that. She's just a young 25-year-old, I think now, who's been with us for 2 years, went away to England for a whole year and got some jobs riding there rather than grooming, so she was lucky. Came back, had her own horses for a while, and then various life change things happened. She came back to work on our place, not as a groom or as my employee, but on a part-time basis to help out with me in the morning early, doing the feeding and such, and riding 2 horses of mine. And then the rest of the day she works on her own business.
Yeah.
And that seems to have worked out well for both of us. So if it doesn't work for both of you, it doesn't happen, does it?
Well, I think the things that you're saying there is she did apply for a job straight after school. She was obviously reliable as a groom. And the fact that she had the couple of years jumping, she obviously put something in it, was focused. And, there's quite a few traits reading between the line that she has, which is why you've kept her there.
I think I can put into some words like reliable, hard-working, focused, and dedicated to the horses. And good horse person. I think in the time she came back after England, she spent some time working at Cambula Stud with thoroughbreds.
Yes.
And doing so well there that she was the leader at all these sales, the racehorse sales. And now she's got a permanent job. Every time a racehorse sales comes, people call for Rochelle to come and do it. So I have to give her a week off so she can earn more money.
Okay.
But yes, it's an example of a young girl with no family backing or history in horses who's been able to make her own way.
Yep.
She makes good decisions. She's very realistic. She's just brought a young horse up and decided, well, it's not going to be a 4-star horse. I'm going to sell it now while it's worth the money, and she's sold it on. A little bit unlike me, who looks at a horse and says, oh, but it might be a 6-star. We won't sell that one, just in case. So, dear.
All right, Look, I think that's great. I think you've sort of pretty much described, so people that are looking to work in the horse industry, you've pretty much described the traits, but also the types of opportunities that you can offer and people take advantage of. So they may think, I'm already a good rider, I want to go into a high-paying job, but to go in just as a groom for someone and to learn and to have the opportunity to learn, to get jumping lessons instead of necessarily going into a high-paid job, but then that also offers you opportunities like being able to go overseas and run your own business on someone else's property. I think that's been really good. Yeah.
Yes, I guess that's the thing here. We do have a cross-country training course, and so Rochelle can teach people on the hills and things like that as well as in an arena. It's a good facility. Yeah, I think that the working pupil stage, it's not for everyone. Some people, you've got to be happy with hard work and long hours and little pay, but it's an experience that you can't duplicate any other way.
Yes.
And you do get things in kind. You do get a trip, your horse on the truck, or lessons with a top coach, or this or that, as well as the learning you might get from the top rider.
For sure.
And even at the lower levels, it's something that people should look at doing. I know of a good rider now who's a 3-star rider who just offered to go and help somebody else and ride horses with them just to have more riding experience because she only owned 2 horses.
Okay.
She would go and ride 4 for somebody else and learn from that. So that there's many ways of improving your riding and taking opportunities, yes.
Yeah. No, I think that's been good. I think that you've certainly given us a bit of an insight and, coming from a slightly different point of view from a mother but also a sponsor. So that's great, Di. I think, I think it's been really good talking to you today. You've brought in quite a few different bits that people may not have heard before. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Glenys. It's been lovely talking to you.
Good to talk to you too, Di, and hopefully we'll talk to you again sometime soon.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.